The story I'm about to tell you might sound like pure fiction to some of you, but for the person who lived through it, me, I know that every single second of that night was terrifyingly real. My name is Rafid, and I work as an architect. I've always loved being close to nature, away from the chaos of the city. I never imagined that this love for quiet places would lead me into the biggest nightmare of my life. It happened about 6 months ago. I was assigned a project to redesign an old bungalow situated next to a remote tea garden in Sylhet. The owners lived abroad, and the property had been abandoned for years. They wanted to tear it down and build a new resort, but they needed a structural survey first. I agreed immediately, thinking it would be a nice opportunity to spend a couple of days surrounded by nature while getting some work done. When I arrived, the late afternoon prayers had just ended, and the sun was about to set. The area was massive, surrounded by endless tea gardens, and right in the middle, atop a small hill, stood that British-era bungalow. Just looking at the house gave me the creeps. The silence around it was unnatural. The caretaker was an old man named Mateen. He handed me the keys and gave me a strange warning. He said, "Son, I live down in the village. I've left your dinner inside. But remember one thing. After the night prayer, do not go to the back veranda or the roof under any circumstances." I smiled at him, thinking it was just local village superstition. I bid him goodbye and entered the house. The interior was massive. Old wooden floors, giant chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, now gray with dust. I placed my bag in a bedroom on the second floor. The room was spacious. Through the window, I could see the tea garden and the dense forest in the distance. I freshened up and sat down with my laptop to plan my work. By 8 o'clock, it was pitch black outside. Power outages are common in these rural areas, so there was no electricity, just candles and my rechargeable emergency light. Suddenly, I noticed the sound of the wind had changed. Up until then, crickets were chirping loudly, but all at once, every sound stopped. It felt like the whole world had just frozen. That's when I heard it. A sound coming from the ground floor. It sounded like someone walking on the wooden floorboards wearing heavy military boots. Clump, clump, clump. I strained my ears. Mateen had already left, and I had locked the gate from the inside myself, so who could it be? A thief? Or was my mind playing tricks on me? I grabbed my flashlight and went to the door, shining the beam down the stairs. No one was there. But a strange smell hit my nose, something like rotting meat or burning sulfur. I told myself it might be a dead rat somewhere in this old house. I tried to calm my nerves and went back to work. By 11 o'clock, I realized clearly that I was not alone in this house. My room door was locked from the inside. Suddenly, from the other side of the door, from the dark corridor, the sound of weeping drifted in. It wasn't a child crying. It sounded like an elderly woman sobbing in despair. The sound was so pathetic and seemed so close, as if someone was sitting right against my door. My heart started pounding in my chest. According to my Islamic beliefs, I know that the souls of the dead do not return to haunt the living. But I also know that God created the jinn, and among them, the evil ones can take human forms or mimic sounds to confuse and terrify us. I gathered every ounce of courage I had and shouted, "Who is it? Who's there?" The crying stopped instantly. What I heard next, I wasn't prepared for. From the other side of the door, in a very sweet, normal young girl's voice, someone said, "Brother, could you please open the door? I've lost my way." A cold shiver ran down my spine. In the dead of night, in the middle of this desolate forest, it was impossible for a regular girl to be here. And just moments ago, I was hearing an old woman cry. Now, suddenly this normal voice? I realized immediately this was not human. I replied firmly, "Whoever you are, leave. I will not open this door." There was no answer from the other side, just the sound of a deep, heavy sigh, and then silence. I couldn't focus on work anymore. fear had taken over. I laid out my prayer mat and prayed, trying to calm myself, but the real horror was yet to begin. Around 1 in the morning, a tapping sound started on my window glass. Tap, tap, tap. My room was on the 2nd floor. There was no balcony or ledge outside, just a sheer vertical drop. It was impossible for anyone to stand there and knock unless they were hovering in thin air. I didn't want to look, but human curiosity is a curse. I slowly moved the corner of the curtain just an inch. In the pale moonlight, what I saw made my blood cold. Floating in the air outside the window was a figure. It looked somewhat human, but its eyes were glowing red like burning coals. And its smile, that smile was grotesque. Its mouth was stretched so wide, it was physically impossible for a human. It was watching me. I screamed, yanked the curtain shut, and backed away. I realized I wasn't in a normal place. This was a den of demonic entities. I started reciting the Ayat al-Kursi, a verse for protection, as loud as I could. But shockingly, the louder I prayed, the louder the thing outside laughed. It felt like the whole house was shaking from its demonic laughter. After a while, the laughter stopped. I saw something like black smoke seeping into the room from under the door. And from that smoke, a voice spoke out. It wasn't the girl's voice anymore. It was a heavy, deep, mechanical male voice. It said, "Rafid, you cannot escape from here. Even your father can't save you." It knew my name. These entities use a person's deepest fears against them. I knew if I gave in to fear now, it would hurt me. I closed my eyes and prayed for help, reminding myself that these are just creations and God is the creator. Without the creator's permission, no creation can harm me. Suddenly, my phone rang. There shouldn't have been any network coverage in this forest, yet it was ringing. I looked at the screen. It showed Mom. Overwhelmed with relief, I picked up the phone. "Hello, Mom? Mom, I'm in big trouble." From the other end, my mother's voice came through. "Rafid, honey, why aren't you opening the door? I've come to take you home. I'm standing right outside the door." For a second, I was confused. Mom came here? But she was in the city. And how would she know I was in trouble? Then I remembered, the evil ones can mimic the voices of loved ones to trick you. That wasn't my mother. I screamed into the phone, "You are a liar! You are not my mother!" Instantly, a piercing scream blasted from the phone, loud enough to shatter my eardrums. I threw the phone across the room. It was 3 in the morning. It felt like this night would never end. The lights in the room started flickering. Suddenly, I noticed the rocking chair in the corner of the room. No one was sitting in it, but it was rocking back and forth violently. I decided I had to get out. Dawn wasn't far off. I unlocked the door and burst out into the corridor, intending to run downstairs and escape through the main gate. But as soon as I stepped into the hallway, I froze. The corridor seemed endless. Where the stairs should have been, there was only a dark, blank wall. Everywhere I looked, I saw only an infinite hallway and rows of closed doors. The entity had cast a veil over my eyes. It was blinding me, confusing my path. I realized I couldn't just run. I needed the strength of my faith. I stood still, closed my eyes, and with total focus, I started to call out the azan, the call to prayer, as loudly as I could. "Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!" My voice echoed through that silent, cursed corridor. It was strange. The moment I recited the testimony of faith, I felt the heavy atmosphere lift. The wall blocking the stairs dissolved like smoke. I could see the stairs again. I didn't waste a second. I sprinted down there. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the main gate keys. Behind me, from the top of the stairs, I heard those heavy boots charging down. Thud, 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 fast and aggressive. I managed to unlock the gate and stumbled outside. The first light of dawn was breaking. From a distant mosque, the faint sound of the morning azan drifted through the air. I ran down the hill, never looking back once. When I reached the village, it was morning. Mateen, the caretaker, saw me and came running. Seeing my devastated state, he understood everything. He said, "Son, I knew something would happen tonight. Long ago, black magic was practiced in that house. It is a nesting ground for evil jinns. That is why I warned you." I returned to the city that very day. I fell ill with a high fever and was bedridden for a week. Since that incident, I've been afraid to be alone, but that night taught me a valuable lesson. We claim to be modern, we deny the unseen, but we are not alone in this world. There are creations hidden from our eyes whose powers are beyond our imagination. I also learned that no matter how great the danger, the power of evil is nothing compared to the protection of the Almighty. If I had lost my faith that night, or if I had opened that door, I probably wouldn't be alive to tell you this story today. So to everyone listening, be careful in strange places, and if you ever feel something unnatural around you, don't panic. Remember, your faith and purity are your strongest weapons.